Hi, I'm Caitlin Van Mall, host of I Survived. If you enjoy I Survived, we are excited to announce a new launch. Starting November 15th, we'll be reposting our classic episodes from Season 1 of I Survived. We hope to reach a whole new audience with these important stories of survival. And for those of you who have been with us since the beginning, we think these powerful episodes warrant another listen. Starting November 15th, look out for those episodes and more news from I Survived.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 286 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing very, very well.
Yeah?
I love the tone of your voice. I feel like...
Dancing?
No, I don't feel like dancing. I feel like by the week, you're getting into a better place.
It's taking time.
It does take time, but I know you're on that path, and I feel good about that. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Katrina Hagedorn.
What's going on, Hagedorn?
Rachel Hufford.
Hey, Rachel.
Karina Gallardo.
Hey, Karina.
Lynessa Brunswick.
Well, appreciate that, Brunswick.
Ari Schoenbrunn.
What's up, Schroemrun?
Day Renee.
Hey, Renee.
Kathleen Kelso.
Well, appreciate that, Kathleen.
Jolene Feltrin.
There's Jolene.
Free Barn.
Hey, Free.
Tara Lopez.
What's up, Lopez?
Lisa Fannensteel.
Hey, Lisa.
Susan Sullivan.
Good old Susan.
Sergio Ruiz.
Well, hey, Sergio.
Darian Long.
What's up, Darian?
Jade Henson.
Hey, Jade.
Riley Snyder.
Oh, awesome name, Riley.
Elizabeth Wozni.
What's up, Wazzy?
Anna.
Oh, Anna.
Sally B.
Oh, don't be silly, Sally B.
Michael Chavez.
What's up, Chavez?
Shlahora.
Shalorora.
Tessa Hawkins.
What's up, Hawkins?
Cassandra Vitella.
Hey, Vitella.
And last but not least, Rebecca Lindsay.
Really? Hey, Lindsay.
Yeah, appreciate that new support. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Terry Timlett.
Hey, Timlett in the house.
Yeah, been with us a long time. We really appreciate it. On PayPal, we had donations from Kia Marie O'Reilly.
Hey, thanks, Kia.
Richard Amy.
What's up, Richard?
And Morgan Wood.
Hey, appreciate that, Morgan.
Yeah, so thanks to everyone. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out on Antoinette Frank, a former New Orleans police officer who, along with an accomplice, killed 3 people at a restaurant in the city of New Orleans. And one of the victims was a fellow police officer. So it's a strange tale. There's a lot going on. Make sure you check it out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We are on to part 2 of the Gareth Williams story. In part 1, we discussed his early life as an advanced student, what we know about his career with the GCHQ and MI6, and the initial investigation into what you would have to say was a very, very mysterious death. In part 2, we'll cover the official coroner's inquest and the differing conclusions from the coroner and the police. The coroner's inquest into Gareth's death opened on April 23rd, 2012. At this inquest, MI6 agents, police, family, and friends would provide evidence about case details and Gareth's private life. 4 agents were given anonymity. Only one GCHQ member was named. And this makes sense based on, everything we talked about in episode 1. There was a lot of intrigue in, regarding what Gareth was doing for some of these agencies. They really didn't want much of it to get out. And so I think when you're going to have people testify, people who work for some of these agencies, you're going to have to somehow not give away their identity.
Well, true, you got to protect it.
The inquest was scheduled to last 5 days and was led by coroner Fiona Wilcox. In her words, the question of whether Gareth Williams was alive inside the bag and locked himself in was at the very heart of this inquiry. And I've already given my take. I talked about it on Patreon this week. I just don't see any way that Gareth folded himself into this bag, zipped it up, and then locked it from the outside. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it sure seems that way.
Well, look, before we tape this episode, you have a bag over here. I tried it. I was not successful. And, I'm very flexible.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you could only get one leg in. So we really couldn't get to the part where how would you zip it and then padlock it? I really wanted you to get to that part because I was going to leave and go to dinner and just leave you in that bag. But I see what the coroner's saying, right? You got to figure that out.
Right.
So saying that it's at the heart of it, I understand that. But in my mind, I just don't see it. I can't.
Seems just so difficult.
Bordering on impossible.
Yeah.
In March 2012, news came out that forensic examiners mistakenly flagged a spot of DNA on Gareth's hand, and they didn't realize until 6 weeks before the inquest that the DNA matched one of the scientists who worked the crime scene. News also revealed that the Mediterranean couple that we spoke about in episode 1 were irrelevant to the Gareth Williams case.
So some things are falling away.
Yeah, because, you got this DNA on his hand. You're thinking this could be key. It could be central to the investigation. Well, now it's determined that it belongs to, somebody working the crime scene. So now it means nothing. Gareth's sister, Carrie, spoke at the inquest and said that Gareth was unhappy and had requested a transfer from MI6. He talked about friction and how he disliked the rat race. She said that the two of them were very close and he visited his parents often. She also spoke about how he loved music, theater, arts, and fashion. He took 2 6-week design courses at Central St. Martin's College in London. PC John Gallagher, the first officer at the apartment, testified about what he saw. He said the apartment was extremely tidy. He found a red sports bag in the bathroom. He could tell that the bag had a bulge. 2 zippers were padlocked together. He lifted the bag 6 or 7 inches, and that's when he saw red fluid seeping out of the bag. And it was after this discovery, obviously the police come in, they learn about Gareth's job with MI6. And that's what led to a discussion about the chain of command in the investigation. It was determined that homicide would conduct the investigation and security intelligence services would participate. Detective Chief Superintendent Hamish Campbell said he was unaware of MI5, MI6, or SO15 doing a separate investigation. The police inside his apartment found a woman's wig on a chair, 2 SIM cards, a cell phone, and a laptop. They found wigs, makeup, women's shoes, and 20,000 pounds worth of designer women's clothing inside 6 boxes in a spare bedroom.
Well, that's a lot of designer clothes.
20,000 pounds is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And I should know because I have a wife who spends a boatload of money on clothes. Gareth's room was filled with packed boxes of 4 yellow sports bags like the one he was found in. Inside were women's clothes, 26 pairs of shoes and boots. Only 4 pairs seemed as though they had been worn. And it was said that 1 pair alone cost about £1,000.
Wow. Talking about high-end shoes.
Yeah. I mean, you've never paid more than $35 for a pair of shoes.
That's a rare occasion. Some people like Nike. I go with Mikey.
I know ever since Kmart went out of business, you've had to step up your shoe game just a little bit.
Yeah, it's been hurting me.
But it was also said that the clothing looked brand new. Some of it was still wrapped in tissue paper. Receipts showed that some of the clothes were purchased in 2008 and 2009. Carrie said that the women's clothing was possibly a gift. She also said that Gareth was a very generous person. And I get that. A lot of people are generous, but that is a lot of clothes.
It is.
Boots, shoes, all kinds of stuff to just have lying around waiting to give out to people. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Well, then you're also what? Are you like getting different sizes? Same size? You know, they didn't really.
It didn't specify.
Right.
So we don't know if it was all sized to fit him.
Yes.
And or a bunch of different sizes that would maybe lend a little more credibility to him giving things out as gifts.
Yeah.
Carrie also said that Gareth was strict about allowing only security vetted people into his apartment, and he wouldn't have given his keys to anyone. She said that his work with MI6 wasn't what he expected and that he encountered more red tape than he was comfortable with. I think a lot of people would say that about their jobs today.
Yes. Yes, they would.
Maybe not what I expected, but definitely it involves more red tape than what I am comfortable with. In April 2010, Gareth applied to return to GCHQ, but MI6 didn't approve him to leave. Until September 1st, 2010, Gareth failed to show up for a meeting he was supposed to chair on August 16th. And as we talk about in so many cases, this was extremely unusual because Gareth Williams was the type of person who was extremely punctual.
Dependable.
He's going to show up.
Yeah.
On April 24th, 2012, the inquest learned that fragments of DNA were found on the sports bag. There were two minor components of another contributor's DNA on a cord toggle. Testing of the padlock found what was called weak stains, believed to be Gareth's blood, and small components of another contributor's DNA. An invisible weak blood stain on the outside of the bag belonged to Gareth Williams. The Guardian reported the bag's two zippers were pulled together tight, and the eyelets from one zipper lined up neatly below the eyelet of the other, with the locking bar of a Yale padlock pushed through both and into the locked position. Two sets of keys were found under his body that matched the padlock. According to Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabir, Gareth's face and body seemed very calm. He was curled into a fetal position, arms lying on his chest, and he had no fingernail or finger injuries. There were no signs of stress or tearing on the inside of the bag.
So it wasn't like he was trying to claw his way out of the bag.
No, it doesn't seem as though he was. I think you could also maybe take from that he hadn't scratched anybody or didn't have any defensive type wounds or injuries or things like that. But this statement by this inspector that his face and body seemed very calm. What do you make of that?
Well, if he was in that bag involuntarily, he must not have been awake.
Yeah, I think that's a good supposition to make, because if he doesn't want to be in there and he is awake, then he's scratching, he's clawing, he's doing whatever he can to try to get out of the bag. So not only are you going to have damage to the bag inside of it, but you're probably also going to see damage to his fingernails, fingers, things like that. According to The Guardian, Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabir said, "My thought or opinion was that a third party had been involved in the death or getting the bag into the bath." You know, oftentimes I say you're not really going out on a limb by saying things.
Right.
I'm going to say it here too. It seems like such an obvious statement to make. I guess you have to make it, but it does seem so very obvious. There were no prints on the bath to indicate Gareth had touched it to lower himself into the bag, or that anyone else had touched the edge of the bath to position the bag. There was also no evidence the bathroom was cleaned. Now, I don't know what you could make if you found his prints, because you would expect to find his prints, most likely anywhere inside that apartment.
Including the bathroom.
Yeah, and maybe especially the tub, if he had to use the edge of that tub to help lower himself down in that bag. A small spot of Gareth's blood was found on the carpet near the stairs. Traces of his semen were found near the bathroom sink and on his quilt. 2 shoe prints in the kitchen were too small to determine the size of the wearer. A green hand towel from the bathroom was found to have been moved to the kitchen. Detectives plan to test this towel and do more testing on the bag.
So they found some possibilities here, but the semen on the quilt.
What do you make of it?
Yeah.
And I know what's going through your head. Man, I hope they never test my quilt.
Hey, now.
Yeah, I mean, we're given all this evidence, quote unquote evidence, but what does it really mean? I mean, this is this guy's apartment. You're going to find bodily fluid. You're going to find different types of things. You would find it in most people's houses. That's kind of where I was leading, as, you know, if it belongs to him,
it's where you expect to find it.
Yeah. What do you make of it? Now, if you find something that belongs to someone else, well, now maybe we've got something.
Right.
But you could also kind of look at the fact that, well, what happens if you don't find something that belongs to someone else? Does that mean that this person was so good at what they were doing? They were so experienced that they knew how to not leave anything behind?
You can make a case for it.
I think you can. And we said in episode 1, right, there are thoughts that he was killed by someone with a very high degree of expertise. I don't know if we put it that way, but I know we talked about something along those lines.
Yeah, don't ever bring that blue light over, please.
No, nobody wants to see that. According to The Guardian, the police also found the newspaper clipping with the article, "The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying," under a book on the coffee table. The clipping was dated August 15th, 2010. And we've talked a number of times about how clean and organized this apartment was said to have been, but Gareth's quilt was crumpled up and partially on the floor, which I think to some, including the police, seemed odd. As we mentioned, Gareth got back to the UK on August 11th. He went shopping on the 11th and 12th. He went to the office on the 12th. On the 13th, he went to a comedy club to watch a drag performance.
And those are the best.
I've actually never seen one.
Oh, really?
No. For some reason, you won't take me.
Well, sometimes they pull me up on stage, so.
And sometimes you volunteer. On the 14th, he went shopping. And then on the 15th, he went shopping at Harrods and Waitrose. He went home around 3 p.m. Gareth's friend, Sean Lloyd Jones, testified at the inquest. She had known Gareth since primary school. They were close friends, and they saw each other about every other day. When she lived in London for a year, she left in January 2010. When asked if she knew Gareth dressed in women's clothing, she said no. She said the clothing may have been gifts. And she added that Gareth had given her expensive gifts in the past. She also said he would have told her if he liked to wear women's clothing because she had gay friends and wouldn't have judged him. And I understand that. But would he have? She's saying she thinks he would have.
Right.
But maybe he wasn't comfortable in disclosing that about himself.
And he also works for some very secretive organizations
who might not have been okay with that knowledge.
Yeah. And
we don't know.
A lot of those individuals are pretty good at deception practices.
Or hiding things they want to keep hidden. Yeah. The inquest also learned that an error in inputting information led police to believe that a third person's DNA was found on Gareth's body. In February 2012, the police learned it was DNA from a forensic officer. On April 25th, 2012, Jennifer Elliott told the Inquest that in 2007, she and her husband heard Gareth shouting for help at 1:30 a.m. They let themselves in his apartment with a spare key and found him in his boxers with his hands tied to the bedpost. The material he had tied himself with cut into his wrists. They said they were in shock. According to the Mirror, her husband asked him, "What the bloody hell are you doing?" To which Gareth responded, "I just wanted to see if I could get myself free."
Man, it kind of reminds me of that one time you called out and needed my help. I won't go into the details, but...
And you walked in on something you didn't want to see.
It was quite embarrassing.
It also reminds me of that one episode of Seinfeld where Costanza got tied up to the bedpost and that woman took his clothes and left.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Except he didn't do that to himself.
No, he did not.
Now, they didn't say that he appeared to be aroused. What they said was that he was very embarrassed, panicky, and apologetic. They never talked to anyone about it and said that they concluded it was sexual rather than him trying to figure out if he could escape from these bindings. I get that. I get how you could make that determination. Do you need to be in your boxers if you're going to do this experiment? No. Could you decide to be? I guess so.
Yeah, you could have a Houdini moment and say, you know what, I'm going to do this just in my boxers. But probably not.
True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare. So it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Hey folks, when you're ready for your next painting project, Claire has you covered. Claire is an innovative new e-commerce paint startup that takes the hassle out of paint shopping with a streamlined selection of designer curated colors, peel and stick paint swatches, and premium paint and supplies delivered straight to your door. Claire was founded by an interior designer named Nicole Gibbons. Claire focuses on fewer, better colors, expertly curated through an interior designer's lens. And they have a fun 2-minute quiz called the Claire Color Genius that can help you choose the right paint color. They also have peel and stick swatches that are an exact match to the paint color and finish, so you can instantly see what colors work best in your space. With Claire, you can find everything you need to choose a paint color and tackle your paint project with confidence without leaving your home. From the products to inspiration, tips, and tutorials, it's literally a one-stop shop. So for your next paint project, definitely give Claire a try. Go to claire.com/TCAT for 10% off your order. That's claire.com/TCATT for 10% off. How many of you out there wish there was a better solution to paying off your debt? PDS Debt has customized 0% interest options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. PDS Debt is giving our qualified listeners a free debt savings analysis just for completing the 30-second online debt assessment at pdsdebt.com/true. You'll receive a full breakdown on how to save on interest each month and the quickest way to take care of your debt. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one low 0% interest monthly payment. Everyone with over $10,000 or more in debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Save thousands in interest and fees. Pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. PDS Debt is offering free debt analysis to our listeners just for completing the quick and easy debt assessment at www.pdsdebt.com/true. That's PDS pdsdebt.com/true. Take back your financial freedom today by visiting pdsdebt.com/true. The inquest learned that Gareth was reported missing 7 days after failing to show up to work on August 16th. He missed 2 meetings and he worked in an office of just 4 people. A senior MI6 officer admitted that Gareth was not reported missing for 5 days, and a line manager said that a breakdown in communication was the reason why. So we've talked about some of this in episode 1, but now you find out that, okay, there was only 4 people working in the office.
Right.
The guy missed 2 meetings, didn't show up for, many consecutive days. It makes it even more strange. It's not like there's 500 people in this office and he's just lost.
It's very minimal numbers. Someone should be able to recognize that you're not there
immediately. Now, we said missing 7 days. This senior officer said he wasn't reported missing for 5 days. There is some thought that he meant 5 work days and that the 7 days are 7 calendar days.
That makes sense.
Gareth's line manager, only named as witness G, said that he thought Gareth's absence was a misunderstanding and that he was engaged in other activities that I was unaware of. Witness G said that Gareth performed some operational duties and never missed a day of work. According to the BBC, he also said that he didn't report him missing sooner because he was stuck on a train. In hindsight, knowing what I know now, should I have taken action? Absolutely. So, here is one thing that we do need to talk about. You have 4 people in the office.
Yeah.
But if someone is doing field work, could they not report into the office for stretches of time? And I think that is possible. Now, I don't know how long this guy is stuck on a train. I found that to be kind of odd. He also said that Gareth wanted to leave MI6 because he was getting bogged down in bureaucracy. Witness G attempted to contact Gareth by phone on the second day he was missing. He was out of the office, but on Friday, August 20th, he tried to call and email, then went to his apartment. He didn't get a response on the intercom. After the weekend, he reported Gareth missing and contacted his sister, Carrie. According to The Guardian, Witness G said, with hindsight, I wish I had taken different steps over that week.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could say that.
I think a lot of people do say that, after something tragic happens. Because obviously at that point, you have hindsight, but you also have a context that you didn't have, before. You don't know something's wrong with him. And obviously if you did or you thought that, maybe you would take different steps. Carol Curtin, an assistant at Dover Street Market, a fashion store, said that Gareth Williams regularly bought women's clothes. He said he was buying clothes for his girlfriend. Carol said he didn't mention his girlfriend's name, and she described him as different from other male customers. Okay, it's very vague. I don't know exactly what it means, so it's really left for people to interpret it how they want. Gareth's friend Elizabeth Guthrie said that he might have purchased the clothes as a support strategy for someone. When asked about Gareth's sexuality, she said she believed Gareth was straight. She said they were friends based on a mutual love of history, art, manga, travel, and humorous anecdotes.
Well, I like humorous anecdotes as well.
I noticed you didn't say anything about history, art. He just went with humorous anecdotes. According to the Evening Standard, Elizabeth Guthrie was asked by Anthony O'Toole if Gareth told her he sometimes used another name. And she said yes. She said he used different phones to call her, but usually just came to her house. When asked if Gareth was interested in dressing in women's clothes, she said they were planning to go to a fancy dress ball together. Nothing of a sexual bent, but we were going to a fancy dress ball together. He was going as a ninja, not as a queen. I have a personal view that he was straight. So I think it's very easy to see, right? A lot of this line of questioning centers around whether or not friends of Gareth Williams had any knowledge that he liked to dress in women's clothing. They're trying to explain all of these women's outfits that were found inside his apartment. Superintendent Michael Broster, a senior SO15 official, testified that there was no link that they could find between Gareth's work and his death. They looked into his personal laptop and found that he visited bondage and sadomasochism websites. His computers were taken from MI6 on August 27th, and then 6 days later, they were taken from GCHQ. The inquest also revealed that the iPhone found in Gareth's apartment had been reset to factory settings. And I found that fact to be interesting. That's not something that most people do unless they have messed up their phone beyond repair.
Right.
Because you're essentially losing everything, right? If you do that.
Or do you do it to make sure you lose everything?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at. Most people don't do that voluntarily. Now, nowadays with the cloud, I think things are a little different. Can you reset it to factory and then download back everything through the cloud? Yeah, maybe.
Delete that stuff on the cloud first, then do the default.
But I think it's more to your point. Was this done on purpose because there was something on that phone that someone didn't want anyone else to find? The family lawyer asked if he could guarantee it wasn't tampered with in the time between when the police got the electronic equipment from the SIS and GCHQ. He said it had not been tampered with. The hearing also learned on this day that SO15 made notes after interviewing witnesses, not formal statements.
Wonder why they didn't get formal statements. You think you'd want to get some formal statements?
Yeah, I don't know the meaning of it. I don't know the implication of that. On April 27th, the inquest saw a yoga specialist attempting to get himself into the bag and pull the zipper closed. The issue wasn't getting into the bag, it was closing it up all the way. William McKay, a former expert with the Army, attempted to get into the bag over 100 times and couldn't do it. But he said it wasn't impossible that Gareth could do it. At the inquest, 2 different experts made 400 total attempts to lock themselves into the bag, and they were unsuccessful. After the inquest, a video of a retired Army sergeant demonstrated himself getting into the bag and locking it from the inside.
So, not impossible.
Not impossible. I still don't know how he did it. I'd love to see that video. But when you have experts trying 400 times and failing every time, and again, it's not getting into the bag, which I'm sure is hard. But if you're small enough, if you're limber enough, I could see how somebody could get into the bag. I could even see how you could zip the bag up
right
from the inside. You don't need the pull part of the zipper. If you think about it, on the inside, there's like a chunk of metal that those attach to on the outside. And I think you could pull that with your finger.
Yeah.
To zip up the bag. What I can't get my head around is that if you have the bag zipped up, how do you get the padlock on it?
Yeah, you definitely would have to have some flex in the bag and have some really strong hands, right? To hold that lock on the outside without dropping it. Meanwhile, maneuvering those eyelets to line up.
Yeah,
it just seems like, man.
I mean, every time I think about it, it just doesn't make sense. So I'd love to see the video of this one guy actually being able to do it. The police didn't find out about 9 memory sticks and a black bag in Gareth's office until April 30th, when the inventory was given for the inquest. According to The Guardian, Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabir told Coroner Fiona Wilcox, "I would have expected to have been told. Had I known of their existence, I would have expected them to be at least reviewed or audited by SO15. and if information was available, then sent to my team. What I knew was that Gareth's email accounts had been checked, but I didn't know that other media had been checked. Detective Constable Colin Hall from SO15 went to the MI6 offices on August 26th and was shown a shared cabinet. No inventory was taken because of the sensitive nature of the documents. A black bag with personal and work items was found under his desk. Hall was told to leave the bag locked. They also said that the memory sticks did not produce much significant evidence. And here again, I'd love to know what was on the memory sticks. I get it, people saying they didn't produce much significant evidence, but according to who and how much of that information was maybe left out, redacted, because they just didn't want it to get out. I don't know. On May 2nd, 2012, according to DianaPeaks.com, Dr. Fiona Wilcox ruled that Gareth Williams' cause of death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. She was satisfied that a third party placed the bag in the bath and on the balance of probabilities locked the bag, and was satisfied that on the balance of probabilities, Gareth was killed unlawfully. However, there was not enough evidence for a formal unlawful killing verdict. She said it was unlikely his death would ever be fully explained. So this balance of probabilities, that must be a UK thing. We don't hear that very much.
We don't.
But I like what she's saying. Most likely, someone placed the bag in the back, locked it, and that most likely Gareth was killed unlawfully.
And I think a lot of people would agree with that.
I think so too, because from what we know, it's kind of hard for me to argue against that or think that something other than that happened. Coroner Wilcox criticized MI6 and SO15. The head of the intelligence service apologized to Gareth's family for the delay in reporting him missing. The coroner criticized MI6 for failing to report Gareth missing for 7 days. She also criticized SO15 for failing to inform Jackie Sabir about the 9 memory sticks and the black bag found at Gareth's MI6 office until 2 days before the end of the inquest. And the SO15 officers who interviewed Williams' colleagues but did not take formal statements. And that's something that you brought up. Why would they not do that?
Why go through all that effort but not follow through on that part?
And just make notes but not make formal statements. Well, now you have the coroner criticizing that. She also criticized how the belongings found in Gareth's locker were handled. A phone contained deleted pictures of Gareth naked in a pair of boots. The officer who found it kept it before giving it to homicide detectives the next day. And it was said that this demonstrated disregard for the rules governing continuity of evidence. How could you argue against that?
You can't argue against that.
I mean, that's like, a forensic technician going to a crime scene and, basically finding something of evidentiary value and sticking it in their coat pocket, going home, eating dinner, doing whatever, and then taking it into the office to get it analyzed the next morning. That's not how you do things.
No.
You bag it, you tag it, you do everything right away. She criticized LGC Forensics for DNA contamination and the coroner's office for failing to inform the police about a second post-mortem exam. In her opinion, Gareth Williams was probably alive when he was in the bag, but most likely suffocated from CO2 poisoning or hypercapnia. She ruled out bondage or autoerotic activity. She said she felt sure that Gareth was carried into the bathroom inside the bag by someone, or he was locked in the bag by someone and then lifted into the bath. Wilcox dismissed Gareth's interest in bondage and women's clothing. She reminded everyone that he was found naked in the bag and that if he were really interested in bondage, he would have had much more internet activity on, those types of websites. His true interest was fashion. She called him a scrupulous risk assessor and said that he would have taken a knife with him into the bag so he could escape. Now, I really like a lot of the things that this woman is saying.
Yeah, she's just coming out and just nailing down the facts.
Well, and not just the facts, but also saying this would have happened, right? So let's make the argument that Gareth was somehow into some type of autoerotic something or other.
Right.
And part of it was climbing inside this bag. Would he not have taken something sharp just in case something went awry so that he could get out of this bag? And I think that does make a lot of sense.
Sure. Yeah. Based on who he was as an individual.
Yeah. Not that accidents haven't happened as part of some type of autoerotic asphyxiation. We know that they have. People have died.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
I know you're very careful.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
She also said most of the fundamental questions in relation to how Gareth died remained unanswered. And I think that's the biggest problem in this case, right? We've got speculation. We do have some facts, but really, if you think about it, the big questions have not been answered and may never be answered, may not be able to be answered.
And that's the problem.
That is the problem. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep. While you're listening to Gibby and I talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now, getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you could save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. The Metropolitan Police said that they would refocus the investigation. Based on the evidence presented at the inquest, Detective Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt said the detectives were taking action to develop existing DNA profiles and trace people who might have information about Gareth Williams' death. On May 2nd, 2012, The Guardian reported that Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabir, the senior investigating officer in the case, was not allowed direct access to sensitive witnesses or evidence. Security cleared officers of SO-15, the counterterrorism division, were go-betweens between Scotland Yard and the Secret Services. SO-15 officers interviewed the SIS witnesses in front of their managers and legal reps. They produced notes, like we said, right? Instead of sworn signed statements. So then I go back to my statement, right? So how much information was sanitized or left out because it was deemed to be sensitive? We don't know. To me, that is at the crux of a lot of, aspects of this case. What information has not come out because it was deemed to be too sensitive?
Right.
But maybe some of that information would shed light on what really happened to Gareth Williams.
And maybe one day it won't be as sensitive as it is.
Maybe that's true. Anthony O'Toole criticized the investigation. He said that SO-15 took assurances from the SIS without asking any questions. And there were errors and discrepancies in the statements they took. So, he's kind of saying some of the same things that we might be wondering about. Peter Faulding, an expert on confined spaces, spoke at the inquest. And it's important to note that he was of a similar height and build as Gareth Williams. On May 3rd, he told BBC that he believed Gareth Williams was dead before he was put inside the bag, and added, even Harry Houdini wouldn't have managed it. He said he tried and failed 300 times to get himself in the bag. He also said that wasn't even the biggest problem. The padlock would have been the biggest problem if he could have gotten himself into the bag. So again, just kind of backing up what we've said, what a lot of people have said. Number one, tough to get yourself in this bag.
Right.
And number two, even tougher to get it padlocked from the inside. He said, Gareth could have gotten into the bag. I put my head in first, followed by my shoulders, and then the leg. You can get into the bag and you can zip the bag up. That's not the problem. The problem is when it's in the bath, putting the padlock on and actually securing the bag from the inside. Gareth was found in a very peaceful position, so there was no struggle. You can't access the lock from the inside without damaging the bag. So it cannot be padlocked from the inside. And the lock was left in a strange position. The absence of DNA added to his belief that Gareth was dead before he got into the bag. On November 13th, 2013, the Metropolitan Police issued the results of their 3-year investigation. They determined that Gareth Williams was most likely alone when he died and probably locked himself inside the bag. Detective Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt said they could not fundamentally and beyond doubt rule out the possibility that someone else was involved. Okay, a little conflicting from my viewpoint.
Mine as well. And I think many others too.
So they're making a determination that he was most likely alone. And I can only assume that's because they don't have any evidence that someone else was there. But then they're saying we can't rule out the possibility that someone else was involved. I get that part. According to The Guardian, despite all of this considerable effort, it is still the case that there is insufficient evidence to be definitive on the circumstances that led to Gareth's death. Rather, what we are left with is either individual pieces of evidence or a lack of such evidence that can logically support one of a number of hypotheses. There was no evidence of Gareth's fingerprints on the padlock or the rim of the bath, which initially supported Dr. Wilcox's determination. There were 10 to 15 unidentified traces of DNA found in the apartment, but none on the bag or around the bath area of the bathroom. There was no evidence of a deep clean that would have erased DNA evidence. The police determined that it was theoretically possible for Gareth to get in the bag without touching the bath. Hewitt said it was a cause of some regret that they could not fully explain Gareth's death. The news came out that the police only got access to Gareth's spy agency personnel and vetting files after the coroner's inquest, but the police denied that security services pulled the wool over their eyes. Hewitt said, there are really 3 hypotheses that you can use here. One is that Gareth, for whatever reason, got himself into that bag and then was unable to get himself out and died as a result of that. One is that Gareth with someone else got into the bag consensually, then something went wrong and he died as a result of that. The third is that someone murdered Gareth by putting him in that bag. I would argue that any physical absence of evidence of a third party being present tends to make the hypotheses that there is a third party present less likely. All right, we got to break these down. He's laying out 3 theories. And I get them. I understand them. First is Gareth got in the bag by himself. Something went wrong. He died. The second is that someone else was there. He still got in the bag. Right. It was consensual. He died. They're very similar, except the second one has someone else in the room with him.
Helping lock the bag.
Yes. And then the third is that Gareth was murdered and then, put in the bag. But it's this lack of physical evidence that makes a third party less likely. And that's what I keep going back to. They're making this determination that most likely no one else was there because they don't have evidence that anyone else was there.
But the reason that you might not have the evidence that you need is because that third party was very skilled
at not leaving evidence.
Not leaving evidence.
Yeah. Retired Detective Chief Superintendent Hamish Campbell spoke with the Sunday Times in February 2021 about the case. He called for a new review. According to Campbell, detectives found a semen stain on the bathroom floor and suspected that Gareth was involved in sexual activity, possibly on August 16th, 2010. This evidence helped him rule out a professional hit by Russia. They also found DNA from 2 people on the padlock, but they remain unidentified. Another piece of unidentified DNA was found on a towel. There was also a single hair found at the crime scene. So we've got some evidence here, but they can't identify who it belongs to.
That's a problem.
It's a problem in that it could be someone involved in his death, or it could just be someone who was in his apartment at some point in time.
Yeah.
Without knowing who it belongs to, you're unable to rule someone out, in or out.
Yeah, like you said, it could have been anybody. I mean, my DNA's all over this place.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it, but you're absolutely right, it is. Campbell said that the evidence indicates that Gareth got into the bag himself. He also said there were what he called tiny scratches inside the bag, and that it was possibly done with the keys inside the bag. Gareth's phone was wiped on August 15th, 2010, the day he was last seen alive, and within hours of his suspected death date. According to Campbell, there was a video on the phone in Gareth's office that showed him dancing naked, except for a pair of black leather boots, and he suspects Gareth recorded the video himself.
We've all been there.
Speak for yourself. He believes the murder had to do with his private life. And that's a common theme, right? In both episodes. A lot of people are saying that the murder had to do with his private life. What I don't understand about this Campbell guy is that he says he thinks that Gareth got into the bag himself, but then he says he believes the murder had to do with his private life.
Yeah.
Those seem to be contradictory statements. They don't have to be. He could have got into the bag by himself, and then a third party who was there locked him in the bag and wouldn't let him out. But he doesn't come out and say it like that.
No, he leaves it as an option.
In February 2021, the Sunday Times reported that advanced DNA testing might allow investigators to test the hair. There were also 10 to 15 traces of DNA that the police could not get full profiles from. All other DNA profiles and fingerprints have been eliminated. So, like we said, they have some evidence. They haven't been able to test it or match it. When it comes to the DNA, it sounds like they can't get full profiles to even try to match it. Maybe the hair will provide something. On June 11th, 2021, the Metropolitan Police confirmed that forensic evidence would be re-examined. So that was just last year, a little over a year ago. We still don't know today exactly how Gareth Williams died. We don't know if he got into the bag alone, or he was put there by some unidentified third party. And I think one of the big issues that I have, Gibbs, as we wrap up this episode, due to the highly classified nature of Gareth's work, I don't know if we'll ever know the full details surrounding his death, because we don't know what some of these agencies have held back and may never release. Maybe the information is gone or locked away somewhere, never to surface. But as far as the theories that have been thrown out there, I think the options are pretty valid, right? When you think about 3 main theories,
right,
of what happened, he got in the bag by himself for whatever reason, was able to do something that it doesn't seem very easy to do, which is padlock himself inside. And he couldn't get out.
Right. And didn't take a knife in the bag with him.
And didn't take anything in there just in case. He got in the bag. Somebody else was there with him, zipped up the bag, padlocked him in, and then for whatever reason decided, you know what? I'm leaving.
Right.
And I'm going to leave you like this to die. And then the third would be that, someone intended to kill him, either killed him, put him in the bag, zipped it up, or knocked him out, put him in the bag, zipped it up, and he died.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you could maybe say the second one, but for me, I lean more towards the third option.
I do too. I just don't know what the motive would be. Was it tied to his work? Was it tied to, a relationship gone wrong? That could be the second or the third.
It could be.
One of the problems that I have with the coverage of this Gareth Williams case is the focus on, his sexuality, his sexual orientation, whether or not he liked to dress in women's clothing. I get it from the standpoint of trying to figure out if he had a relationship with someone or, what type of bars he might have gone to, stuff like that. But when it comes to him as a person, that's where I really struggle, because what does it matter?
It doesn't. That's the thing,
I don't care that if this guy enjoyed dressing in women's clothes and liked to dance around or whatever it is, unless it helps point to his killer.
It's irrelevant.
Now, it could be a clue, only in that it may tie him to someone who he was having some type of relationship with. Yeah. But I don't know. There was a part of me, as we were researching the case, that just thought some of this stuff was being put out just kind of to be salacious.
A little bit.
And it just seemed like, kind of like some of the cases we cover here in the U.S. where a woman is murdered and let's say, she was an exotic dancer or a sex worker. And it's like the whole coverage is based on that, not about the fact that, her life was taken.
Right.
And I have issues with that. I struggle with that. It's almost like, I don't know if it's victim blaming, but it feels like it. It's almost like, papers are saying, well, this guy liked to dress in women's clothes. So bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
They're not coming out and saying that, obviously.
No.
But that's it for our episode on Gareth Williams. Obviously, it's a very mysterious case. And I just don't know, in a case like this, will we ever get the full details because of the different agencies that this guy worked for? There's no guarantee that all the information will come out.
Doubtful.
I would say so. But we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi guys, it's Emma from the Silver Spot here again. Just been listening to part one of the Gareth Williams case. Brilliant, loving it. It's also great because GCHQ is just down the road from me, probably 25-minute drive in Cheltenham. So that's how it's pronounced, just so you know for next time. Cheltenham, or Cheltenham, as we say here. But Anglesey, nailed it. Perfect pronunciation. But anyway, thank you for all your hard work. Can't wait for part two, and keep your own time ticking.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I don't actually remember how I said it. I thought it was more like the second one, but I'm sure I wasn't even close. Cheltenham.
Just say it really fast, and they can't call you out on it.
No, I'm going to get called out, and that's cool because we say so many names of places that I've never heard of. We try to hear people say them,
right? Either
on YouTube, or we try to find somebody saying them, but everybody says them all kinds of different ways. So.
Right. Yep.
But we always appreciate it when people call in.
We do.
Hi guys, this is Madison from Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I was wondering if you guys would be interested in doing an unsolved podcast on Chance Engelbert. He went missing in Scottsbluff, Nebraska a few years ago, and his case has still gone unsolved. It's a pretty big deal around here because we don't have things like that happen over here. So maybe you guys could look into it. Again, it's Chance Engelbert, and he went missing from Scottsbluff, Nebraska. As always, keep your own time ticking. Have a great one, guys. Bye.
All right. Appreciate that voicemail. That's not a case that I'm familiar with. We will definitely put it on the list. We'll check into it. We'll see just how much information is out there. We do that quite a bit.
We do.
Sometimes you run into the issue where, you know, it's in a small town. There's only like a paper or two that's covering it. So you just don't have the dearth of information that you need to make an entire episode out of. But right. If it's out there, we will do it.
See what we can find out.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is myself calling from Tacoma, Washington again. I just called, but I just finished listening to the Unsolved episode for Faith Hedgepeth, and I have to Google after I listen to every episode. And just last year in September, a man was arrested for her murder after a DNA match when he was arrested for, drunk driving. Anyways, I stumbled upon another case. They were talking about the DA in the county doesn't historically seek the death penalty, and she's not in this case. But it brought me across a 2015 case where a man named Craig Hicks killed 3 people, and I just wanted to suggest that for an episode on TCAT. Anyway, stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
So a little crossover email there. We did know about the information on Faith. We've been saying for so long, we need to figure out how to give updates on some of the unsolved cases that we've done that are now solved. We haven't yet figured out exactly how to do that.
Right.
Maybe just one episode with everything that's been solved since we've been doing this podcast or something. We need to do it. We just haven't figured out the best method yet.
I think it's like a dozen of them that's been solved.
There's a bunch. Yeah. And then we'll put that other one on our TCAT episode list. So we appreciate it. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
This month, celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with Pluto TV. Watch movies like Compadres in the Spy Kids trilogy, or your favorite stars like Luis Gerardo Mendez in Camino a Marte. Plus, Pluto TV has thousands more movies and TV shows and over 45 channels in Spanish, all for free. So download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming today. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.